A good day everyone. We welcome you to the massive open online course on cartographic techniques practical. Today we'll be discussing about the elements of map composition and we'll be trying to design a few maps using QGIS. So we'll just dive into the contents of today's lecture. So we'll talk about what is actually map composition, then we will talk about the major elements of map composition, then we'll be discussing about the procedure and the tasks that we are going to do today, and as usual we will look into a few points that you should always have in your mind when it comes to map composition. Okay, now what is map composition? So we have been doing a lot of analysis. So even in your last 2-3 weeks you have been doing a lot of analysis, you have been doing few operations, you have been creating few maps like your choropleth maps, isopleth maps, dot maps and your flow maps. So we have done some spatial operation, we have done some analysis. Now we always want to represent this information, represent your spatial analysis in a much better way. So when we think about trying to represent this information in a much better way, map composition can help you in doing that. So what is this map composition? It is nothing but there are a lot of elements that are a part of a map. Now when you try to arrange these elements and when you try to work with these elements in a meaningful way, when they are able to convey some information very clearly and very attractively, then it is called as map composition. So these elements are going to play a major role. So till now what you would have done is you would have put up some data in your QGIS map space, you would have worked with it, you would have altered the symbols, you would have altered the colors, you would have done labeling, all these operations. Now it is time to show it out in a meaningful way, it is time to represent that information in a meaningful way, and map composition is going to play a major role over there. Now talking about these elements, so one more thing that I want to tell you is when it comes to map composition, you have to understand what is the application of map composition and what is the purpose of that map. So based on the purpose, based on the application, so your map might be useful for flooding, your map might be useful for any kind of health based study. So in that case you should always know what is my application and what is the purpose of doing this particular map. If you have a hold of that, then you can create good maps. So key concept here, or the core concept here that you should remember is, it is something called as spatial thinking. Yes, so what is this spatial thinking? I have a few questions, so I will tell you those questions, you will understand what spatial thinking is. So the first thing is how a map should look like. So based on who I am giving the map and based on who I am going to display the map, I should plan how my map should look like. So basic understanding is whether I am going to give the map as a landscape or whether I am going to give the map as a portrait. So that is one basic understanding. The next thing is which kind of symbology will suit my purpose. So if I am going for some kind of study that is related to temperature, I would always like to show the highest temperature in red color and the lowest temperature in blue color, because that is what we generally have for fire and cold. So something like that. So blue to red will be my symbology. So what symbology I should give so that it represents the information very convincingly. The next thing is what the map should convey to the user. So that also you should have. So when he looks into the map, he should understand it to the point. So what it should convey and how it should convey it is what all map composition is about. So we can do analysis, we can do few mathematical techniques, we can look into few programs, we can build analysis tools, but then without spatial thinking you cannot create good maps. So with that being said, we will jump into the elements of map composition. Now when we talk about the elements of map composition, the first thing is we have to give a title to our map. So any map without a title is like without an head. So you need to give a title, then only your user will understand what this map is going to show me or what it is going to represent. Now next to title you have a scale bar. Now scale bar is basically used to help the user understand what is the scale of the image you are showing, whether it is a small ward or whether it is a district, whether it is a state, whether it is a big country, or whether the data you are showing, if it is in the form of a raster, what kind of a resolution it is going to be in, how good the resolution is. So basically scale helps you to understand or helps you to bring out few assumptions related to the distance that the map is covering. Now next to scale, you have your north arrow, which kind of indicates which direction my map is facing. So that is the sole purpose of your north arrow. And then next comes the neat line. Now neat line is nothing but, as it's said in the word, neat line is just to bifurcate each component of the map and show it in a more attractive way and show it in a more cleaner way. So there are a lot of components, there are a lot of elements of the map. We try to put up few neat lines to represent it and show it in a much better and clear way. So neat line is used for that purpose. Next to neat line is something called as the graticule and grids. Now a major purpose or a major use of the maps is always going to be find where and which location it is in. So if you find a map and if you want to know at what location it is in, or if you want to know which locations are affected, if you have graticules or grids, that will be helpful to find out which location it is on the earth. Similarly, in your topo sheet georeferencing also, you would have marked the corners of the topo sheet. So when you mark, you need to know what is the latitude and the longitude of those corners. So this graticule and gridding of a map will always help you to understand this information, so that in case you have a map that is as an hard copy and if you want to convert it into a digital map, in those cases the graticule and grid will be very helpful. I have few examples for you guys. I will try to show you that. I have few images also for your understanding, but you please note down these elements. These elements will always be part of your map composition. Next to that, you have legend. Now legend is the most important thing, because your map is going to be colorful, your map is going to show a lot of information. Now legend will help the user to correlate the information in your map with what it is. So let us say you put up a map that is showing the airports. Now everywhere you cannot go and write so and so airport, Chennai airport, a Delhi airport, you cannot write it on the map. So we try to put some symbols. Now when you put those symbols, so for an airport we put a small symbol, and that symbol will try to put it up in the legend and show that it is an airport. So wherever you find that particular symbol, for example let us take a symbol of a plane, so that symbol on the map will show that it is an airport. So next to that, you have the actual map body. So all these components, no, title, scale bar, your north arrow, your graticule, your legend, all these things will go meaningless if you don't have a map body. Now what is this map body is, whatever your map space is showing in QGIS, that is the map body. So in QGIS you have a map space, whatever information you are putting in that map space information, when you bring it to a layout, when you bring it to a in the form of a map, that is called as the map body. We will see all these things in the practical part. So next to map body, you have your labels and text. So obviously you have to label few information. You want to show the name of the roads, you want to show the name of different lakes or forest, you have to label them, and so some text and label is going to be involved. And in few cases you might have to give credits and sources of where a map was generated or where the data was generated. We will try to put up those source and information. So quickly we will skim through a few maps. So yeah, this is a map that has most of the components that we discussed in the previous slide. Okay, so you can just quickly see the title, which is 1. Then you can see the neat line that I told you, no. So this neat line, it is bifurcating the data, and it is, you can also see another line also around to just make it appear visually pleasing. So that is why we generally have a neat line. So next to that, what you have is your labels. So you can see here they have labeled every country over here. So this is the South American continents map, and they have labeled all the countries around. So then after this you have your scale over here. So it is representing it is trying to represent what is the distance of the map. So you can get an idea of, okay, for a particular unit what is the distance going to be in real world. Then you have these options, metadata, ancillary text, and all these things. These are kind of additional components, but whatever I am marking with the numbers are the major components. So we saw neatline, title, then I said no, the principal map body 5. The principal map body, this is where you see the data. So the whole thing that is inside your map space in QGIS is your map body. Then you have your graticule. So your graticule is your gridding. So you can see these horizontal and vertical lines that are cutting through the image or the map. So that is your graticule. Now there are few components that are missing here, and there are few maps in which I will try to show you that. So this is your legend. So your legend, so I said no, airport. So you can see your airport over here. I can find another airport here. So what the legend does is it makes your interpretation a bit easier. So interpretation is made a bit easier. So this is again your 7th component, and then this is again a much better example of a grid or graticule. So in the map before this I showed you just the lines. Here you have the different the latitudes and the longitudes are being marked over here. So this is an exact graticule. We will be doing all these things, we will be covering today. So with that being said, we have covered the major elements, we have seen why we need a map, these things we have seen. So the next thing is, what are we going to do in this session? That is what we are going to discuss. So there are two things that we will be doing in this session. First thing is to try to create a population density map, or try to compose a population density map. That is the first thing we will do. And then in the next lecture what I will be telling you is how do you create a location map. Okay, so location map is a very important component of map composition. I will tell you what is a location map in the next slide. So and the data set we will be using for all these experiments is going to be an India states underscore density dot shapefile. Now what is this location map? So I hope you can see this map in the screen. So you find this is actually USA, and in USA you have n number of states. So and you can see this one single state is being highlighted with a different color, and that single state is being projected as a larger map over here. So this is called as a location map, where you have a larger area and you kind of come down to the lowest or the area where you are focusing. So my work, I am going to focus on Tamil Nadu, means I take the India map, I show Tamil Nadu as a very small with a different color over in the India map, and then I kind of project it and show it in a much larger scale. Now this gives the user or the the audience who is going to use your map, it tells you from which place it is in a much convincing way. So in India, in which state, in which district, and in which location. So you can kind of come down the hierarchy starting from country to ward. You can create these maps, and these maps are very important because they are again going to convey you more information about your study. If I just take this state alone and put it up, and if I tell you, if I do some analysis on it, what happens is you don't get the bigger picture. So now Arkansas is situated in the almost in the eastern part of USA. So some decision making is going to be involved because by knowing that it is situated in the eastern part. And when will you know it is situated in the eastern part is when you have a smaller scale map showing it within the country, and then you can come for a in-depth analysis. So this is basically a location map. So in terms of procedure, so we have discussed about what we are going to do in 2 lectures. So the next part I am going to start with a practical, and in the next lecture we will discuss about doing a location map. Now the basic procedure or basic things you have to remember is nothing. You have this option of a new print layout in QGIS. You will actually go to a project tab, you will select a new print layout, and then you will add all your map components based on the requirement, based on the application, and then you will export it again based on the requirement, what resolution they want, what is the file format they want, PDF or JPEG. Based on that you will export it, whether they want it in a portrait or whether they want it in a landscape. So this is the basic procedure we will be discussing. This is the basic thing that we will be doing in the class today and in the next lecture. So with that being said, we will quickly jump into QGIS. I have already created a density map and I have kept it. We have already discussed also about how to create a density map. You can try doing it and you can keep a map like this. Want to do is quickly do some labeling here, and I want to do some changes with the legend also. You can just follow this up. So in terms of labeling, what I am going to do is I am going to try to display the population density value in the center of each state. So it will be around the centroid of each polygon. So I will try to display that, and the color you can change it to a bright yellow. You can apply, and then you will see what is the density of each state. So maybe we will just try to make this a bit bold also, and italic also. Okay. So now you have your labeling done, and in the legend also what I am going to do is I am just going to show it as low, and then I am going to show it as moderate, and then I am going to show it as high, then give OK. So you can see your legend now. So now we will quickly jump into how I am going to make a map out of all these information that I have. So that is where we are going to jump. So you are able to see this icon of project over here, no? So you click on project, then you see this option of new print layout. So you go to new print layout and you give a name to it. So I will give it as India population density. So you give it as India population density, whatever name you are comfortable you can give, and maximize this screen. You see a small white paper over here, just press Ctrl and just zoom into it and you keep it ready. So the first thing is, when I look into the India map, I feel that going for a portrait orientation is much better. So what I will do is, I will right click here, I will go to this option called as page properties. In page properties you can see what the size of my map is going to be. So if you are going to print it for a report, then A4 is the best size, and then you can go for a orientation which is, like I said, portrait. If you are going to make a large scale map for a campus, in that case you might want to shift these sizes. So now I will just stick to portrait and A4. So my layout or my page setup is now done. So the first thing that you should always do is, in terms of QGIS, the first thing what I generally do, I will try to teach you, is first go to this option called as add item. So you click on add item, then you get this option called as add map. I click on add map, then you can see your cursor it's in the form of a cross sign, no. Now what you do is you click at one corner and you drag a small box like this and you leave. You have got your map space inside the layout now. So now this becomes your map body. So and quickly what you do is you just select this map here, okay. We will just rename this also for your understanding. So I will put this as the map body for your understanding, okay. And you quickly go down in this options, you will find something called as a frame over here. So you see this option frame. So you click on this frame, you click on that frame, okay. So what happens is there is a small border that comes around the map, around your map body, okay. So now this is good. The next thing what we will do is we will try to center this map in terms of your map item content, no. What happens is your content inside the map body can be altered. I have chosen the move item content option and you can see the map moving around, and the thing is you can also zoom it to adjust it to a particular scale so that you can represent your information in a much better way. So these two options, option number 1 is your move item, and option number 2 which is your move item content, you should know the difference, because personally for me I get a bit confused with it. It took some time for me to adjust to it. So you always remember these two options, which is quite important, okay. Now with that being said, now we have got our map body inside. So the next thing that we are going to bring in is your north arrow, okay. So you give add north arrow, then you draw a box like this, then you have a arrow that is showing up towards the northern direction. This I will remove, I don't need this. So you have your north arrow. Then the next thing that we will be doing is go to add item, click on add legend. So you can quickly bring in your legend over here, you can put it at one side. So in terms of legend we can do a lot of modifications over here. In the right side you have few options. So you see here it is in auto update, you can remove this option of auto update, okay. And the first thing I am going to do is I am going to change this name, India states density. This is taking directly from the layer, but in terms of map it should represent the right information, no. So I am going to write India hyphen population density 2011, okay. India population density 2011. And in terms of legend, one more thing that is being done as a practice is we always have a title, and that title name has always been as legend only. So you have to give the title name as legend, and then your layer names you can kind of update it over here. Even these options you can change it over here. So if you double click, you can change it to any option that you prefer to name it, you can give that option. So you have lots of options through which you can play with the legend. So I am going to just stick to this in terms of legend, and I am going to just add a small frame around it. If you select the item legend and you go down in this properties, you will have the frame, you click it and then you have created a frame for your legend. So next thing I am going to add is an add item. You go to the option of add a scale bar, you click on it, then again you click and drag and drop. So you get a simple scale that is representing what is the distance of the map. And even in legend, one more thing that you can do is you can also add this here. So India population density 2011, even in the bracket you can put up the number of people per square kilometer, number of persons, person by square kilometer. So even that you can add, and you can kind of bring it a bit to the center. So we have added a map body, we have added a north arrow, we have added a scale, we have added the legend. So these are basic components. The next thing is I want to put up a title for this map. So you have this option called as add label. So you can use this option add label to put up the title. So you can again draw a box like this, and again the properties of that item you can change this. So India, okay, and then you can give an enter, you can write in population density, in the bracket you can put 2011, and then you can do your usual stuff that you do with your text. So you can do your alignment to center, and you can bring it to vertical center. Then the size you can adjust in item properties. One second, yeah, you have to click on this option of appearance. No, in appearance you have this first option which is font actually, okay. So you click on it, it takes you to the part of font where you can adjust the size. So see, I have adjusted the size over here. So we will keep it at 20 and we will make it bold. You can just slightly adjust this. Okay, so far we have done good. We have brought in map, we have brought in major components, and I think most of the information we have been displaying properly. One thing we can try to do is maybe we can try to add the grid now. So that is the last thing we will do, that we will export the map. So for grid, what you do is you select the map body, then you move down in that, you have this option called as grid or graticule. So here in QGIS it is called as a grid. So you click on this plus icon which shows you this option of grid 1, and then you go to modify grid, and in modify grid you choose the grid type as frame and annotations only. You choose it as frame and annotations only, and then it will ask you for what is the interval of gridding. So I will give first 1 unit and we will see how it looks like. So this is kind of trial and error, the interval part alone. You try giving few units and you try to check how it looks like on your map, and in your frame style you go for this option called zebra, okay. You go for this option called as zebra, and then you come to this option which is called as draw coordinates. So you click on draw coordinates, you will see the values. So now what I feel is this 1 degree of interval is too high, so let me go for an interval of 5 degrees. So see 5, then here another 5 when I enter it. So this is looking a bit okay. So there is sufficient number of points representing the latitude and longitude. So one more thing is, in the left and right side you are able to see these values not looking that good. So we want to kind of change its orientation. So in draw coordinates you see this option called as left and right, no, and here you see that it is horizontal, you change that to vertical ascending, and then you can see the grid values, the latitude and longitude, it has now changed to the vertical. Similarly for right side also change it to vertical ascending, and then you have this option of offset which you can kind of give to adjust the position for better aesthetic appearance also, okay. So we have done till this. your grid is ready, your map body, your title, north arrow, legend and scale. So basic components we have done. So one more thing what you can do to finally export your map is go to add item, then you have this option called add shape. You can go to this option called add rectangle, you can click on this, then draw a small rectangle around this, and then you change the style of that rectangle. So what I am doing is I am kind of making that rectangle a bit transparent. So now, so most of your components are now ready. See, this grid is also kind of a neat line. So for legend I have put a small frame, that is also a kind of neat line, and similarly you have a small rectangle that you have put up to bifurcate this map from any content in your document. So that also acts as kind of a neat line for you. Yeah, so we will export this map now. So few basic components for a map I have shown you. So we will quickly go to layout, then you go for export as image, you click on it, then you can just go to your respective folder. I am going to save this in the desktop. So India population density, you can go for a JPEG format, and here you can choose what is the resolution you want. So I will go for resolution of 600, and then we will save it. You have your India population density map ready, you have all the content, and you can just take this map, add it to your Word document and do some display. Okay, so what we have done now is we have put up all the components of the map and we have exported it as an output. So I will show you one output now. So the one that we did now, this is the output from that, and you can see the labeling also. So in few cases we can avoid labeling also. So you see these places where this is the Lakshadweep Island, so you can try to avoid labeling part here also, and you can also try playing around with the labels, you can try changing the colors of the labels, and you can try to create your own maps based on your application. So there is something called as the rule based labeling, so you can try exploring that. So we will show you an output that we did by generating a rule based labeling. So you can see this map here. So in this map now we set up actually few rules. So when we set up the rules, you can see that these places, these small places where, so here Pondicherry, all these places you won't see the labeling. So this is called as the rule based labeling, which you can explore when you have some time. So again, so this is another map that we created with a different color of label and with different rules that we use for the labeling. So in general your map composition we have seen, we have also seen how we add the basic elements of your map composition. So these elements that you are seeing here are the basic elements, we have covered everything here. So in the next lecture we will look into how we can create a location map. So let us say from India, how do we take Tamil Nadu, keep it separately, and then how do we make a map out of it. So we will see that part in the next lecture, and thank you so much, have a great learning experience, thank you.